Right. So, what would you do if you had to go fight for a country and against a country that your own country wasn't fighting? Well, that's what happened to the AVG, American Volunteer Group, otherwise known as the Flying Tigers. So, they formally formed in 1941. However, this kind of goes back to 1931 when Japan invaded China and took the province of Manchuria, and then Shanghai in 1932, and on July 7th, 1937, they fired on Chinese civilians at the Marco Polo Bridge, formally announcing their plans for Asia to conquer it. So, the president, Generosio Chiang Kai-shek, had very few resources in both Army, Navy, and Air Force. However, he thought that a really, really strong Air Force would do this. So he hired Colonel John H. Jouett to make a Randolph Field, or Randolph Air Force Base, as it is known today, over in China. However, political pressure from the Japanese forced the U.S. to pull back Colonel Chet, and it just kind of fell apart. So Miss Chiang, however, did not give up and went instead and found Colonel Claire E. Chennault and hired him to make a Air Force. So Chennault gets over to China, and he first tries to use a bunch of for-hire pilots. However, these pilots are not very good, and they end up wrecking their entire Air Force. So, in 1941, Roosevelt finally said, "We're going to war," and he made an all-out aid to China. However, most of the resources were going over to Europe to fight Hitler. So all China could have was some very outdated P-40s. Chennault said, "That's okay. I don't need planes. I need pilots." So he went to all the military bases, all the training bases, and he got the best pilots from the Army, Navy, and Marine Air Corps. And this was through the summer. Towards the end of the summer, all the guys went over to China to start fighting. So how do these guys go up against what was termed the impossible Japanese Air Force? The Japanese had ruled the skies, had been choking out China, and had really cut off supplies. So these pilots really needed to be able to do it. Well, there's three ways. So 1/3 is training, 1/3 is fear, and 1/3 is hope from the people. So the first 1/3 is training, and Chennault came up with a way. He found that the Japanese airplanes could turn a lot faster. However, the P-40s had a faster straightaway. So what he came up with was that the P-40s would hover up above at a higher altitude in the Japanese, and then come roll in, fire, swoop down, swoop back up, swoop down, swoop back up. The pilots were never allowed to get into a one-on-one dogfight with the Japanese, and it really saved them. The other third is fear. And that fear would be the tiger shark. The Japanese are very superstitious people, and they had tiger sharks swimming all over their waters. So they painted it. However, the tiger shark mouth has been painted in previous units before, so they wanted something different. Well, they came up with the tiger, and an artist at Disney came up with the tiger and put wings, and it was flying through a V for victory. That worked. Japanese were terrified of these guys. The other third was the hope of the Chinese people. And these pilots really did bring in hope and liveliness. The Japanese people had been bombed for years and the bombs had not fallen, had been falling without any resistance at all. So their first battle, they down four enemy planes, and the next day, whenever a tiger would walk into the village, the people would gather. Kids would follow behind these pilots, shouting and praising and calling the attention of the elders. People came down from the mountains to come see at these people, these pilots. So those are the hopes. Now, throughout their entire career, they only lost 11 pilots, take that back, 10 pilots and 1 crew chief in combat, due to either being shot down or in the case of the crew chief getting bombed. They lost 9 pilots in accidents, training accidents, or since they had to get new planes down to there, transporting them over the mountain. And they lost 4, and 4 were reported missing in action. However, their enemies suffered 286 airplane losses with 15,000 men. Those men were operating the plane. So the Japanese were the pilots, the navigators, the gunners, 15,000 of them gone. And that's officially credited to them. However, there's estimated another 300 somewhere within the lakes, mountains, and forests of them. Today, the Flying Tigers are 74th, 75th, and 76th Fighter Squadrons housed at Moody Air Force Base.